So if you can imagine being here, being where you are, and just being where you are in whatever the environment you're in is, whatever your body is like, just being where you are. If you can imagine being where you are without thought. See if you can imagine what would it be like to be where you are right now without thought. Is there a problem? Is anything wrong? What's it like to be where you are right now without thought? Just imagine it, without thought. What's it feel like? Is there a past? Remember, without thought. Is there a future? Is there a you? Remember, without thought. That's what we're practicing in meditation. We only get little bites because we're practicing moving attention from the incessant, deeply automatic habit of thinking and identification with thinking. And this thinking and the identification with thinking is constantly interacting with life, constantly being stimulated by the environment, by interacting with other people. It's constantly being stimulated and reified by talking and interacting with other people, because talking is coming from thinking, yes? Yeah, so whenever we talk, that's why silence is considered the greatest teacher, because if there's silence, can there be thinking? No, thinking would occur in the silence. So when we practice meditation, we're practicing not thinking. We're practicing experience what life would be like without thought, even though it's just a brief moment, and then thinking returns again. And because it's just a brief moment, we don't get the full effect, you see. Because it's just a brief moment, we don't experience what it would be like to live without thinking, because it's just a brief moment. In fact, we think about not thinking. We think about the brief moment, right? And the thought process is such that this whole business of practicing meditation is a conundrum in a sense. It's like, what's the point? What's the point? Because I can't stop thinking. If thinking is the problem and I can't stop thinking, what's the point? Why would I practice this? Why would I practice moving my attention from thinking to awareness without thought, awareness of the body breathing? Why would I do that? So that's a thought process. Why would I do that? But then if you do this simple exercise that I just invited you to do, if you can imagine, even to some degree, even if to some degree you can imagine what it would be like to be here that way, without thought, to get a sense of the freedom of it, to get a sense of the opportunity that it presents to relax because nothing's happening, you know. Nothing's happening in the sense that if you can imagine being here without thought, in order for something to happen, you would have to think that it happened. You see? But without thought, you're just here. You're just here. And the awareness that we are knows this, you know. So if I ask you to imagine what it's like to be here without thought, you don't freak out, you know, you don't panic. It's like, oh, it's the unknown. No, that doesn't happen, right? Because the awareness that we are knows. You know, transcendental wisdom allows us to experience, or the experience occurs, doesn't allow us to experience, the experience occurs in which knowing is happening. And there's no fear, there's no upset, there's nothing but just if you imagine what it would be like to be here without thought, and you're like me, you know, and you're having the experience, or the experience is there, the same experience is there that's there here. Do you have a sense that you would like to live there? Wouldn't it be nice to live there, right? See, the reality of it is that you are living there. So all that's necessary to have that be what it's like to experience, is to recognize and to realize that you are there. And so the trick is, can you let thinking begin again, but remember that where you are is not the thinker, and the thoughts are not determining the experience, so that you're still experiencing what it's like without thought, even while there's thought. You follow me?
Yeah, sure.
Yeah. So that's what this is about. You know, that's what this is about. So that the thinking stops mattering the way it matters when you're using it to be here. It stops mattering like that. It's there. Same thing with emotions, you know, the mind-body organism, the emotions and the thoughts, you know, they come and they go, they change all the time, right? They come and they go, right? But none of that has an effect on the being that you are, that is always here without thought or emotion or history or future, just here. That's what I was talking about earlier when we were talking, and I said that the transcendental wisdom, the occurrence of transcendental wisdom is a function of the recognition and the realization of no self, that there's no self, right? That's just another way of saying no thought, isn't it? Transcendental wisdom is no thought. Can there be death or no death without thought?
No, there can't be death without.
So there's the Heart Sutra, you know. No death, no end of death, right? No self, no end of self. Because the only self there is the one that's getting generated in the thought activity, right? So no self. So then what is it if there's no self? So what is there without self? See, because I'm saying the same thing, without thought, without self, same thing. So without self, which is generated by thought, right? What is there? If you were doing that exercise where you were imagining what it would be like to be here just as things are the way they are without thought, then that's the same as being here without self. So then what? There's no self. So what is there then? When you were doing that experiment, right, of being here with no thinking, which means being here with no self, which means transcendental wisdom. Right? So then what? What's that like? What's happening then? What's the experience then? So you could summarize what you just said and said that what's there is what's happening. Right? What's happening? This is what I meant when I was saying that awareness knows. Awareness knows. Awareness knows that there are appearances.
Yes.
Awareness knows that everything's changing all the time. Awareness knows that, right? But there's no self. It's just awareness, right? And in that awareness, there is a body. And in that awareness, there are emotions and thoughts under normal circumstances, right? But again, if the experience of not thinking is maintained, right, thoughts occur. But when I say the experience of not thinking is maintained, what I'm pointing to is in that way of being, thoughts occur, but they're no different than anything else that's happening. Are they? Emotions arise, but they're no different than anything else that's happening. Are they? They're coming and they're going. Thoughts are coming and they're going. In that mode of not thinking, if you're just imagining it, in that mode of not thinking, by the way, this is the invitation that I'm doing. I'm just doing it sideways. Yeah, in that mode of not thinking, right? Everything is still known, but in that mode of not thinking, does what's happening mean anything? In the mode of not thinking,
No, it has no meaning.
has no meaning. Emotions arise and fall, emotions come and go, thoughts come and go. Right? But there is no thinker and there's no feeler. That's a transcendental wisdom experience. No thinker, no feeler, no self. Just what's happening. Thoughts happening, emotions happening, everything's coming and going. Emotions come and go. How about behavior? Without thinking. Without thinking, look at behavior. When I say behavior, I mean what your body's doing, right? Without thinking, what's it like? What's behavior like? There is no thought body. But without thinking, I don't know about you, but without thinking, right? The awareness knows that there's a body. Not thinking there's a body, but it appears just like everything else is appearing. The world didn't disappear without thinking, did it? No, it still appeared. In awareness, there is a body. The difference is it's not my body. It's the body appears the same as the chair appears. Right? I'm not the chair and I'm not the body. I'm the awareness. Without thinking, it takes thinking for me to have the body be me. But without thinking, it's an appearance, just like everything else is appearing. And the awareness knows. The awareness immediately knows what's so. Direct knowledge, right? See, one of the things that I'm pointing to here is that if you experience this, if there's an experience of transcendental wisdom, right, which is to say that there's an awareness of being There is no thinker thinking thoughts. There's just an awareness of being. Thoughts show up just like everything else, right? Feelings appear just like everything else, right? But there is no me, there is no self now, right? There is no me, there is no self now. So if you imagine that, if you imagine what that's like, is what's happening coming from somewhere? If you imagine what it's like, no thinking, but you're aware, is what's happening coming from somewhere? See, notice that you'd have to think to answer that question, right? But I'm saying no thinking. So no thinking, you can't answer the question. It's not coming from somewhere. This is the freedom. Can you see it? This is the freedom. So it's not a matter of stopping or changing anything. No. It's a matter of recognizing that this not thinking experience is available at all times. We call it awareness. It's available at all times, right? So, can you be in the world that way? Can you be in the world experiencing not thinking? Can you be in the world experiencing not thinking when thinking happens?
Yes.
It's a possibility, right? Because this awareness that doesn't think is always here. So it must be possible for this awareness that doesn't think to be here now in the world, not thinking. Even if thinking's occurring, the awareness is not thinking. So the thinking appears just like everything else appears. And the behavior happens just like everything else is happening, right? Now, can you begin to see the predetermination in there? Right? Because you have to think about the past and the future to have time, right? You have to think you exist and you can do things, right, for there to be free will, or for you to think of yourself as somebody that can take actions, right? You keep noticing that I'm saying think, right? But without that, it's just happening. They used to say, oh, Nisargadatta had a bad temper, because sometimes he would yell, And they asked him about it, do you have a bad temper? He said, no. I don't have a bad temper. Yeah, but you yell and scream sometimes. He says, yes, that happens. Do you see where he's speaking from? He's speaking from the awareness that doesn't think, doesn't have emotions, doesn't think thoughts, but the emotions and the thoughts happen. He's not denying that they happen. What he's saying is that he's doing it. He's just saying that that's what happens. So if you can get what I'm pointing to in regard to him, can you get that for you? That your emotions happen? That the emotions happen? See, it's hard to talk without saying your emotions, right? Emotions happen. They're not yours, because there's, transcendental wisdom means no self, so they're not yours. No thinking, no end of thinking. This is the Heart Sutra. No feelings, no end of feelings. What's it referring to? Transcendental wisdom, right? The awareness doesn't have any feelings to lose. The awareness doesn't have any thoughts to stop thinking. No thinking, no end of thinking. The awareness doesn't have any death for there to be an end of death. This is transcendence. See, transcendence? It's beyond that. It's beyond that. And yet it's available, it's here, it's aware. And when this awareness knows itself and is being itself, then thinking happens, emotions happen, physical bodies happen, actions happen, the world happens, right? And you're in it, but not of it. You're in it, but not of it. Kingdom of heaven on earth. Right? Why kingdom of heaven on earth? Right? Because there's no suffering, there's no death. This is right. Isn't that a heavenly experience? No suffering, no death, no worry, no pain. You know, when Nisargadatta was dying from throat cancer, right? They said, "Are you in pain?" He said, there is pain. There is pain. He didn't say didn't say I'm in pain, because for him there was nobody to be in pain. There's just pain. So that's what this is all about. See? And when you're practicing meditation, it would be a big mistake to think that when you're practicing meditation that it's going to get you something, or it's going to take you somewhere. See, when you think that when you're practicing meditation, you see, the only way that could occur is in thinking, right? Yeah, but if you're not thinking and you're just sitting there, you're being. You're just being. That's why Dogen, a famous Zen master, he didn't even want to teach meditation with any instructions, with no technique at all. The way he taught meditation is called shikantaza, right? Just sit. Just sit. Because anything that, he realized that giving any instruction other than just sit, right, would give the personality something to do. And he's trying to eliminate that, right? Just sit. So, you know, you mentioned earlier, well, it seems very simple, but it's very difficult, right? No difficulty, no end to difficulty. Heart Sutra. No difficulty, no end. No simplicity, no end to being simple. Transcendence, right? When you say those things, you're repeating thinking, right? Thinking, the process of thinking is the process of seeing everything as being separate. It's the process of creating time. One thing is happening after another, right? It's a process that goes on. But the thought process is harmless to the awareness. It's harmless. It doesn't mean anything. It's just the mind-body organism functioning the way it functions in the world. That's what it is. The mind-body organism functioning the way it's functioning in the world. The awareness is aware of that functioning, right? But it's not identified with it. When you're meditating, the awareness is watching you sit there breathe. You know, watching who you think you are sitting there breathing. The awareness is watching who you think you are sitting there breathing, believing you're going to get something. Waiting for you to get over it. You know, Ramesh Balsekar once, he said to Nisargadatta that he had started to meditate. And Nisargadatta said, "Oh, okay, very nice." Then at some point later, Nisargadatta said to him, "How's your meditation practice?" And he said, I stopped doing it. I don't do it anymore." And he said, "Oh, excellent." What was he talking about? Right? Basically, he was just saying, you know, if meditation happens, meditate. If meditation stops happening, stop meditating. From the awareness point of view, the meditation is something that the person thinks they have to do to be what they already are. Okay, if you think you have to do it, do it. You'll get over it. You'll get over it. At certain points, if you see, it's kind of the harder you try to be what you're not, the worse it gets, doesn't it? The harder you try to think your way into being happy, the worse it gets. It's like my Zen teacher said the other night, Dan. There's only one thing worse than being neurotic. You know what it is? Trying not to be. All you can say is that it is. The appearance is. The appearance is what it is. And what it is non-conceptual, right? Now remember, without thought. Thought is conceiving. Thought is conceptual, right? So without thought, non-conceptual, right? It is what it is. We don't know what it is. We don't see the personality, the identity doesn't know what it is, so it's got to make shit up to understand it, right? But the reality of it is, from an awareness standpoint, right? It is what it is. Awareness knows it is, as an appearance, just like everything else is an appearance. Right? This is why, if you were living in an awake state consistently, you have no questions. Because everything is obviously what it is. What is there to question? Because when you think you're a person who is reacting and using thinking to resist and control, right? That's what's in the way of the experience of your natural state. When the energy is free to flow, what occurs is an experience of a natural state, which is the same thing as I was talking about earlier in terms of what would it be like to be here without thinking. That's the natural state. You're that way because you're trying to control things, you're trying to be comfortable. This is the life of the human being. This is the life of the personality. This is the life of the idea that you're a physical body. It all goes back to the misunderstanding about what you are. Once you're living the life of a person that's thinking, all the rest of this shit happens. Because all you're doing is saying, I want to go where I already am. And if I think about it this way, it seems like it'll help. Can you see the joke? I want to go where I already am, and if I think about it this way, it seems to help. I might be closer. I might be actually closer. That's why Paul Hederman says, when he talks about this process of transitioning from being a person to realizing your true nature, he always says, and upon having never left, right? So it's like you think you're going somewhere. You think you are somewhere that you're not, and then you think you're going to get from there to some other place, right? And that's just the dream you're having. That's all. It's just a dream. Nothing wrong. It's just what's happening. The behavior will happen. The personality will happen. The emotions will happen. The interactions will happen. The thinking will happen. Right? Right? But it's just what's happening. The Transcendental Wisdom tells me that it's just what's happening. It's Layla. That's what they call it in spiritual teachings. Layla, the play of consciousness, is what's happening. And so all the meaning that could be attributed to it, and all the thinking that might go on about it, and all the way of identifying with the body and all that, right? That's just consciousness moving and playing. Conscious just moving and playing. Doesn't mean anything. It's not going anywhere. Can you see the freedom? Mm-hmm. Can you see the happiness? Yes. Can you see the satisfaction? Can you see the peace of mind? Yes. Even while it's happening, and the speaking is occurring, and the activity is occurring, and your body's moving, and all that, right? That's all enjoyable because there's no attachment to it. It's like watching a bird flying or something, you know. I think it was my Zen teacher, yeah, that one of the students asked him, well, can you do siddhas? Your siddhas are like psychic powers that people say that awake beings have. Mm-hmm. Oh, he said, yeah, I can do citizen. Oh, he said, he, what citizen can you do? And he said, I can fly. And the guy said, oh, you can fly? Show me, you can fly. And he pointed to a bird and he said, there I go. All right, that's enough.